Hey there, everybody. Welcome to the Full Stack Chat podcast, where we bring on builders and indie hackers from the developer community come and talk about the products they're building and learn about what they're doing and generally give advice to our audience. My name is Brian Morrison. I am a full stack tinkerer and developer educator at a company called Clerk, which is which is a user management platform that's designed for getting authentication up and running in your applications as quickly as possible, specifically Next and React are our two biggest supported frameworks. Today, I have Eddy Vinck with me, who recently released Blog Recorder. Eddy is a full stack engineer from the Netherlands who works with JavaScript and TypeScript and is focusing on building consultancy. He's also a conference speaker who I have the pleasure of hanging out with in just a few short weeks at that conference in Wisconsin. So Eddy, why don't you go ahead and fill in any gaps I might have missed there about yourself?
Yeah, you got it. So, hi, my name is Eddy Vinck. I'm 28 years old. I've been a software engineer for just over 7 years, maybe approaching 8 now. I lose track of the number, but I've worked at like several different types of companies, like marketing agencies, startups, full stack agencies that are a bit more involved than the marketing agencies, and now front end focused consultancy. Primarily, well, it's not just front end, actually. My current client, it's more Node, so I guess you could say JavaScript, TypeScript focus, and it's called Front Value. It's a tiny company, and they want to keep it that way, so that's intended as a nice and cozy group of people. And on the side, I have been building this thing called Blog Recorder, and that's what we're here to talk about, right?
Yeah, for sure. We'll
Yeah.
definitely get into talking about Blog Recorder. We've got a lot to cover, but want to start off with a little icebreaker. So one of the things I like to do with my guests, just to know a little bit about them outside of the work and the dev stuff that we talk about on Twitter and on social media all the time, is get to know a little bit about them personally. So my question for you is, what is your favorite way to spend a weekend? What kinds of activities you like to do outside of work that kind of fit the ideal weekend?
Well, if it's an extended weekend, then I guess going to metal music festivals is a thing I like to do. Like once or twice a year, we go with a big group of friends at like one of the major festivals here for like four nights. It's awesome. Yeah, just hanging around with friends. Sometimes I play video games, but nowadays not too much anymore. It's so yeah, and of course family stuff, hanging around with my dog, things like that. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, it's a shame that we don't live a little closer to each other. So I'm in the States and you're in the Netherlands. And I think we talked about this when we were hanging out at that conference. We're both kind of into the whole metal festival scene. Although it's
Mhm.
been a couple
We
years
did.
since I had the chance of going to one, but that does sound like a great weekend to me. All right, so let's now hop on to the meat of our conversation, which is Blog Recorder. So, as I understand it, Blog Recorder is kind of an AI. It's a tool that's built with AI that's designed to kind of transcribe spoken audio, things that you're talking into the browser, into something like a structured blog post. Um, what did I miss there?
Right. So I think the big differentiator from like some of these other like uh prompt to article tools out there is that like instead of you have it's more not like a chat bot interface like you might know like chat gpt, for example, where you just like give it an instruction like, oh, write me a blog about this thing and include these topics and go ahead and make up all the information for me. It's more like you talk into your microphone. It's like just like you're having a conversation, basically. So it's really unstructured, and that gets transcribed, but not like a word for word kind of fashion. It's actually taking that like unstructured kind of data. It's a kind of a strange way of saying it, but like the unstructured conversation that you're having with like a monologue with yourself and the app, and it takes that and it like tries to break that down into like structure with like a title, of course, headings, lists, and all that kind of stuff that you might see in a rich text editor. So it's really a great way to go from, okay, I have this idea for a blog post, but I don't know how exactly I would structure it, or like maybe it just takes you a long time to do that. Like it is kind of a long process when I try to do it myself without Block Recorder. So like having this tool just like take what I'm saying and like dividing it up in like these nice sections that basically make it a nice reading experience, and like having that as a first draft that you can then take and edit within Block Recorder, because it like turns that into a rich text editor format, so you can edit it like because of course it's more like an AI writing assistant than the AI that does the entire job for you. So like it prepares a good first draft, and you can then take that, edit it, like add, for example, code blocks is something that I recently added. Like text transcription for code is not good, or audio transcription. So stuff like that, it's probably better to edit that in yourself. And yeah, and then you can just export it to some popular formats. So right now I support Markdown for, of course, like developer platforms and stuff like that, but also HTML, which basically works for most rich text editors out there. So it's not a blog hosting platform. It's more like a writing tool, and then you can take what you write and export it and like host it on your favorite blogging host.
Nice. So AI is one of those things that I admit I'm something of a late adopter to, and I've only really kind of dug into in recent months. So I'm very fascinated with this concept. How could you go into a little bit about how the workflow happens kind of behind the scenes? I imagine, are you using something like the OpenAI APIs to bounce data along? Um, so let's take it from the perspective of someone who's just starting out and talking and speaking their article out, right? What happens with that audio in order to go from just the spoken audio track into a structured post, potentially even with code snippets, which that in itself is sounds super cool and very impressive.
Yeah, sure. So basically, what it comes down to is you talk into the app, and it like turns that into an audio file that you can also download after you're done. But then when you're ready, you just click on create article, which is basically a file upload, right? So I upload it and store it. And then I have this serverless audio processing pipeline that I made, which basically transcribes it. And of course, then it's text based, and then I can go wild with all the AI APIs and stuff like that. But yeah, that's basically what it comes down to. So then I take the output of the AI, and then I I validate that it's a format that I can work with, and then I process it into this other format so that it's able to be edited in a nice editor instead of just plain text or something like that.
Gotcha. Now you had mentioned serverless. What's the stack look like as far as it's hosted? What things do you have hosted in what places?
Right. So I have it hosted on a couple different platforms. So my marketing website, I believe, is on Netlify. That's just an Astro website. Then there's the application. That's a Next.js application that I host on DigitalOcean app platform. And then the serverless part of it is hosted in AWS. So that's Lambda and a few of their other services that work nicely with Lambda.
Awesome. And then what inspired you to build this? Where did the idea come from?
Yeah. So basically the idea came from I was driving to work, and for some reason that's when I get a bunch of ideas, I guess, just like an idle mind and driving, and like tons of space for creativity in the background or something like that. But so I was driving to work, and there was a traffic jam, and so if there's a traffic jam, then the whole drive can be one way for like 2 hours. So it's a long drive, but I don't have to do that every day, fortunately. It's mostly remote, but once every 2 weeks we go into the office to sit together with all the like my coworkers who are consultants and working at these other companies. So it's nice to have one day where you see each other as well. So yeah, I was driving to work, and there was a traffic jam, and I had this idea for a blog post, and it's like, yeah, but I don't want to go on my phone while I'm driving. That's not really the most responsible thing to do. So it's like, okay, I can just record an audio note, but then, okay, that's great. I did that. And then you have to listen back to the audio, or maybe transcribe it with something else. And if I want to, achieve something similarly to block recorder, I would have to take that transcript and paste it into something like ChatGPT, and give it this whole elaborate instruction that I have to add every time. And then it's still mostly plain text or markdown. So you probably want to edit it still. So it's like I did that once, and I was like, okay, this is not really great. There's all these tools that I'm gluing together, and it's not really if I want to do that more often, then it's not really a great workflow. So that's when I got the idea to just make an app for it and save myself a bunch of time. And it appears that other people also really like the tool. Thanks, Dominic. I see you highlighted the comment. Yeah, Dominic is one of my first few paying users, so thank you for that. And yeah, so a lot of other people have tried it. I have last time I checked, it was 110, 111 users that have at least tried it, and about 6 of those are now paying subscribers. And some of the things that I've gotten back as feedback is that it saves them a lot of time. So personally speaking, I've been on a car ride where I'm listening to a podcast, for example, and it was a podcast about SaaS by a friend of mine, and they were I don't really remember the exact topic but they were talking about something that just gives you these own ideas, right? Because you're listening, and it's like, okay, I have these ideas to talk about this as well. So it's like, okay, I can just well, of course I'm not going to be holding my phone the entire time, so just a quick okay, open the app and hit record, and then just talk about my thoughts, and stop recording, and then out comes basically a blog post with all my ideas. And that's something that would take me maybe an hour or more can be condensed down in 5 to 15 minutes, which is pretty awesome. And I've heard similar things from other users trying it. So a couple days ago, one of the new users, Tim, he told me that he would normally spend a few multiple hours on some of the articles that he recently made with Blog Recorder. And he published 2 articles in the span of 2 to 3 days. And he said it just took him 10 to 20 minutes, which is pretty amazing. If you can cut down your writing process from 3 to 4 hours to 20 minutes. That's I'd say that's pretty good. So but it's not only just the time saving, it's also just a nice workflow. It's more natural than okay, hey, ChatGPT, write me this topic about this thing. It's more okay, it looks at the things that you are saying. So it's not based on the creativity of, the large language model. It's actually, instead of this like big data set that the thing is trained on, it's actually looking at the things that you say, and it makes it an article based on that. And that's really what makes it different.
That's awesome. I love the use case of using it in a car. I don't, after the pandemic, a lot of us got sent home, and some of us had to work to return to the office, and some of us, like myself, I've permanently kind of adapted to the remote work lifestyle. But
Hmm.
there are certainly some times, like if I'm at the gym or something and I come up with ideas, like you had said, you're in the car, and for some reason those ideas hit you at the weirdest times.
Hmm.
I've launched one SaaS product in my career independently, and it was about um, it was for a game specifically, and the details don't necessarily matter, but the idea came to me because I was watching videos about the game while I was washing dishes, and I was like, wouldn't it be nice if there was just a link that had all this information that this person's talking about in
Hmm.
there? And that was like the origin of it. So it's so cool to hear that. I'm not the only one that comes up with these ideas to build things in these really, I don't know, weird scenarios, I suppose.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So, and I also wanted to highlight the fact that you're saying a big reason why Blog Recorder has kind of caught on the way that it has is it does save people a lot of time. I think that's one of the three, foundational blocks of reasons why people will spend their money on stuff, and saving time is a big one. Um, so what are some challenges you faced along the way? I know I've loosely followed your journey on Twitter as you've been building this thing, and I know it took you a little while to do it, as it takes. I think everything that we do as
Hmm.
builders often takes a lot longer than we initially expect it to. I don't know how many times I've sat down. It's like, oh, I'm just gonna whip up this SaaS in a night. And it's like 5, 6 hours later, I'm like, yeah, this isn't going quite as easy as I expected it to. So, what are the big
Yeah.
challenges you faced while you were building it, or unexpected things you ran into that you kind of
Oh,
had to adjust for?
there's a lot. Well, first thing is that I'm doing this next to my job, so that in itself is a challenge already. But I started building it while I was already having a pretty big like thing I was working on next to my job, which was a freelance project. Don't have to talk about that much, but it was like building a custom website for someone, and eventually it was a bit unfortunate, but the project wasn't finished. So, but I was like, there were these feedback cycles, and I had the idea for block recorder already written down, and there were these feedback cycles with that freelance project where it's like, okay, I can't really continue without getting your feedback from the client, right? And I also don't, want to sit on my hands and just do nothing. So it's like, okay, I'm just gonna go build this thing. Um, so time was a big constraint, um, which what made it very challenging because there was a lot of uh, not necessarily distractions, but I was focusing on other stuff as well. Um, And then, of course, there's always technical challenges. So I have never like built anything like this. So like I am traditionally more a well, not so much for the last few years, but before that, I've been mostly a front end developer, and I've been slowly but gradually expanding to back end and CI/CD and all sorts of things like that. um, and I knew some of that. Like I have used Terraform, for example, or like written pipelines before, but this time it's like, okay, I'm gonna do it like all by myself. There's no like colleagues that like, okay, can you do this for me? I don't know, like that's, I had to do all of that stuff myself. So there was a lot of learning involved, just getting that ready because there's a lot of shortcuts you can take there, but I wanted to do it in a way where I wasn't necessarily dependent on a specific hosting platform, for example. So that's why I went with Terraform because you can deploy to various platforms, which is exactly what I'm doing now. Like I'm deploying to both DigitalOcean and AWS in a single pipeline, and it works great. And I'm doing that to multiple environments, so not just a production environment. And I don't have to like pay some platforms super premium price just to have an extra environment. It's just like a bit of extra configuration to do it, which is it feels pretty great. So I wanted to set myself up for success there in the future without breaking the bank because, well, essentially I'm doing this part time. So if I'm like I try not to think about it too much, but if I have one day a week where I'm working on the project, but the hosting for it is I don't know, like $20. Uh, I'm basically like relatively speaking, I can't work on it the whole week, so relatively speaking, I'm paying a lot more for the specific time that I can use it. So it feels a bit I don't know. Maybe I'm just cheap. No, but I wanted to have not the I didn't want to limit myself with specific platform features. I would just want the flexibility and also just be able to move stuff around. Like I initially wanted to host it all in AWS, so I was using AWS Amplify, for example. And eventually I moved that to DigitalOcean app platform because I had some issues with Amplify, specifically, I believe it was some DNS stuff with adding new subdomains. For some reason, that was a pain at the time. I think they've updated their platform pretty recently, so maybe it's fixed now. But at the time, I didn't feel comfortable going forward with it, so then I had to like move it to some other platform. So it's like, okay, where am I going to move it? Well, I guess a good way to have a portable application is doing it with Docker. So then I looked at like platforms that support that, and DigitalOcean was one of them. So I tried it, and it worked, yeah, pretty great. So I stuck with it. A friend of mine recommended it to me, so it's also pretty comfortable with that decision since I wasn't doing it just by myself. Um, yeah. So lots of technical challenges, lots of learning. There's also some platform risk that I ran into. Like I had my database hosted at Planet Scale, and as you might know,
I'm aware.
yeah, they removed the free tier, which is fine. That's their rights. They got to make money, and their service was great, so I would charge for it as well. Uh, I can't blame them, but the pricing for a project that's small as mine as it is right now, like I was looking at the potential bills, and I couldn't justify the cost because having their database would cost me more than my entire infrastructure right now. So not really worth the trade-off. And it's like, okay, I'm already on DigitalOcean, so they also offer managed database services. So all right, let's give that a shot, and that worked out great. So that's what I'm doing now.
Yeah,
And
great.
yeah,
Yeah, I like that you highlighted just all the pivoting you have to do, especially when you're exploring these things, because like sometimes things come up that we can't really expect. I mean,
yeah,
Planet Scale removing the free tier is a good example of that. And
yeah,
you just got to kind of figure out how to push past it. And I certainly wouldn't call yourself cheap either. I think as independent, indie hackers is kind of the term I see a lot more than
mm,
builders these days. We really need to be we need to be scrappy. We need to figure out how to do as much to maximize our output with spending as little as possible, because I think realistically the long-term goal, especially if you're bootstrapping yourself and not going for VC funding, like you're doing it with the intention of supplementing your income or going completely independent and living solely off of the things that you're building. So the bottom line is a big deal there. I definitely wouldn't call yourself cheap at all, because I'm in the same boat. Yeah. So all right, I think we're gonna start wrapping up here. But before we do, I've got one more big question for you, and this is probably one of my favorite questions to ask my guests is, if you have one piece of advice for new builders, or I guess even experienced builders, maybe they have one application under their belt, they're trying to kind of expand their portfolio. What's the one piece of advice you'd give to them?
Right. So I had a note for this, so would have a good tip. So the my advice would be, and it's really common advice, but it is true, that the earlier that you talk to your potential users, the better. Like, don't don't build an application in silence for like a year or less than that, and then post it on Twitter or X, Reddit, and Product Hunt, and expect it to blow up right away. Like, sure, that happens, but that's like more an outlier than the norm. So what I did is, actually, before even writing the first line of code for Block Recorder, I was already promoting it. Like, I just put up a landing page with a title. Like, that was just it, like a heading and a wait list, like input where you can put your email. And it's like, okay, are you interested in this thing? Give me your email. And it's like, okay, I am only gonna start building this thing if I have more than 20 email addresses. I was like, okay. I believe I had like 12 at some point. It's like, okay, I'm just gonna do it. I can't wait anymore. I was too excited about the idea anyway, but I wanted to like give myself at least some constraint of like, okay, I want some sort of validation before I spend, potentially months building this thing. So that would be my advice. Let people know about it before it's ready, and if at all possible, let people try it for free before you launch. That's what I did. I had a few people that seemed really interested in the product, and I just told them like, "Hey, do you want to try this thing for free? I'm just gonna set you up with an account. All I need is your email, and all I ask in return is your feedback." That's how I got my first few users, and also first bit of real user feedback that helped me improve the app before it was even ready for everyone, which has been really helpful.
Awesome. We're still early on in the life of the podcast, right? Like, this is only episode 7. And out of the 7 folks that I've had, you are at least, and I say at least because the first few were last year and it's been a while and I don't remember the context. But just in the past several weeks since I've revamped this, you are the second person now to also promote building an audience before starting to code, which I think is important. And not to steal your thunder, but a quick hack, if you will, as indie hackers. Newsletter platforms are a great, simple way to do just that. I want to eventually get around to, and this isn't necessarily about building stuff necessarily, but I want to build a course for how to use GitHub Actions in a real good way. And I used Beehive. I originally was going to just throw in a form and gather it and toss it into a database. And I'm like, or I could just copy the snippet and drop it right on the front page. And then it just all kind of, everything else kind of magically works for me.
That's
It works
exactly
great.
what I did.
Yeah, nice.
I'm also using them on just their embed form.
Yep.
Yeah, works
Yeah,
great.
that's great. All right, Eddy. Well, thank you so much again for coming on here. Blogrecorder.com is the URL for those who want to check it out. I'm going to go ahead and throw it up on the screen there for anybody. Actually, you know what, Ray? I totally missed this. Ray Fernando from our chat asked what Blog Recorder is. Ray, that's the topic of this entire podcast. Maybe you can give Ray a quick TLDW on what Blog Recorder is.
Yeah, sure. So Blog Recorder is a voice blogging app. So you record your own voice within the app, and it turns that voice into a structured blog post, not word for word, but actually like based on what you say. And you can then edit it in a nice rich text editor with a bunch of features. There's also going to be some AI features soon to make the editing even easier. And then you can just export it to your text and like in HTML or Markdown format, and you can then host it on your favorite current blogging platform.
Awesome. Thanks for the recap. Where can people find you, Eddy?
They can find me on Twitter, or X as it's called nowadays. It's at Eddy Vinck with an extra K at the end, because I believe it was taken potentially by myself and an email that I no longer have access to. But
Okay.
yeah, so that's where I'll be posting a bunch of progress updates, and of course you can also check it out yourself at blogrecorder.com. It's free to try. You get a couple free articles that you can create without paying, with no credit card, stuff like that, just so you can try it without giving me any payment information or whatever if you're not comfortable with that. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks to everybody who watched live and everybody who has perhaps watched the video, the recording after the fact on YouTube. If you are watching the recap of this, links to everything we talked about today will be in the description, so you can find blogrecorder.com as well as Eddy's social links. And if you're looking for a community of other builders who are building their own products and have the goal of financial independence, go to fullstack.chat, where you can join the Discord. And I hope to see you there and in the next one. Take care of everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.